Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Des Moines, headlined by Cory Sandhagen and Deiveson Figueiredo. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, if you want to become a client, link down in the description. Already have 3 plays up for clients. Now, at UFC 314, we ended up cashing about 12 units of profit. Last weekend, we gave about 5 of those units back because Michel Pereira decided really not to fight. Terrible showing from him overall. We did cash on some other plays there, but that was the one that costed us. And you really can't cap a guy who decided not to fight on fight night. So with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Cory Sandhagen and Deiveson Figueiredo. Now, you got Cory Sandhagen sitting around the minus 520 number, and you've got Deiveson Figueiredo sitting around plus 350. Now, you do have Cory Sandhagen, who recently come off a loss to Umar Nurmagomedov. And on the other side here, you've got Figueiredo, who recently got boxed up against Petr Yan. Now, Figueiredo is a former flyweight champion. We all know that. And since he's moved up to bantamweight, he is 3-1 over that span and has looked good in certain spots. He goes out there, beats Rob Font, Cody Garbrandt, Marlon Vera. I mean, some nice performances overall. And one of the things that he really needed to do to find success is utilize that wrestling. Really a wrestle-heavy game plan, looking to positionally win bank rounds, get that top time, and find victories that way. Now, with that being said, Figgy is very undersized for this division, and especially on Saturday night, he will be very undersized for this. But the one thing about it is that he's now 37 years old, and he is just sick of cutting weight down to flyweight division. And it's very tough for him, obviously, at this particular point in his career. It's obviously a much easier camp for him now to have this, but it's definitely a give it a take because you're going to be giving up certain things and you're going to be gaining certain things. And one of the things he's going to gain is going to be his cardio. That's something that I think that he has struggled with, that we did see in the flyweight division. I mean, how much weight he had to cut, it's draining his body. But on the other side here, yes, he'll have the cardio, but the other side, he's not going to have that physicality advantage. And that's something, him moving up in weight, it might be an easier camp for him, but the physicality and the size of these fighters is really going to be against him. He's not going to have that big power advantage that he has had on all the flyweights, being kind of a size bully. It's really going to be the other way in this division. Now, not only is size advantage for him or disadvantage for him, but also the fact that he is very low volume. And that is a massive concern here when you're fighting someone like Cory, who does push out good volume. Now, you do have Figueiredo, who lands under 3 significant strikes per minute while absorbing almost 4. And that mostly that's good. That's not really good, but it's good because he, in the flyweight division, he could land one big shot and have this and drop the opponent, have a big moment, win the round, win the fight, get on top control. But, that's going to be different here where, he didn't have to push the volume out of flyweight. Here, I think he absolutely has to. And against Cory Sandhagen, who's going to push out big time volume, I think he really is going to have to worry about that, where Cory lands over 5 significant strikes per minute while absorbing less than 4. So he's very defensively sound, yet he pushes out that good volume, and he's just a better minute winner between these two. Now, Figueiredo, I think, absolutely has to get his wrestling going in order to find success. It's going to be tough for him. Cory is, Umar was 5 for 13 on takedowns against Cory Sandhagen, and Cory did okay. He got controlled, and that's what Umar does. Credit to him there. But I don't really think you're going to see Figueiredo find better success on takedowns. Cory is an elite level striker, fantastic, stance swishing, very smooth on the feet, and very tough to finish. Out of his 14 UFC fights, he's only been finished 1 time. That was against Aljamain Sterling by submission. And I just think this is a spot where Cory can work the range, work distance. And I think that also Figueiredo having this cardio is going to be fine getting to the decision. I think he's going to be able to get there, but just get completely out-volumed over the 5 rounds here. So getting off the big number of minus 520, we can get Cory Sandhagen by points. Is sitting around minus 140. I think it's a great price. Probably the most likely outcome, and I think it could be a very one-sided striking win for Cory Sandhagen. So I'm taking Sandhagen via points minus 140. And the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Santiago Ponzinibbio. He is minus 118 on the comeback here. You've got Daniel Rodriguez minus 102. Now, This is going to be an absolute fight for the ages. And when I say fight for the ages, I mean these are two old guys. You got two 38-year-olds here. They're on an absolute decline. Both of these guys are just at the point where you're just starting to see the wheels fall off, and they're really kind of heading towards the end of their career here. You got Ponzinibbio 3-4 to his last 7, and you've got D-Rod, who is 4-3 out of his last 7. Now, the biggest advantage here that I think for Rodriguez is going to be the volume. And that is something that I think really can help him in this fight, where he can push out that high volume pace. Over his last 2 fights, and each one, he landed over 120 significant strikes against Kelvin Gastelum and Alex Morono. And that's pretty impressive, especially at this point in his career, to push out that kind of volume. But what he doesn't have is power. And that's just something that he just completely lacks. He's kind of a guy that goes out there, just keeps touching it, just keeps landing, but isn't something that's going to be overly impactful. And both these guys do have a little bit of rocky chins. We've definitely seen both these guys rock wobbled multiple times, but that's really where I do think that the advantage does start to go towards Ponzinibbio, where he is going to be, I think, the better, more well-rounded fighter between these two guys overall. He's got the more versatile combinations. I think he can mix it up a lot better, more technical on the feet as well, faster hand speed. And I just think he's more skilled. And I think he's going to be able to move forward and find a lot of success, because I don't think he's going to be worried about really what D-Rod offers up, power-wise. And you've got Ponzinibbio, who's a kill or be killed kind of fighter. And I don't think D-Rod's a guy that's going to land these big shots, hurt him, rock him. I think it's really going to be on the other way, because I think Ponzinibbio, who's going to move forward, has that power advantage on top of some striking skills that he's going to have above D-Rod as well. And the power advantage is definitely there, especially it does carry late. 4 of his last 5 wins are by knockout. And the interesting part, again, is the lateness of some of these fights, where he can kind of push through. And 3 of those KOs, 2 of them happened in round 3, 1 happened in round 4. So that just shows that, even when the fight gets tough, he can still land the kill shot later in the fight. And that's something else that he has done, is he's pushed through adversity pretty well. There's been times, we had a 4% play winner on Santiago Ponzinibbio against Carlston Harris. And early Harris dropped him. Early Harris was looking to land some nice things. And all of a sudden, Ponzinibbio lands 1 big shot in the 3rd, fight's over, he wins. And I think that is something that could possibly happen in this fight here, where I don't think he's going to outland Rodriguez over the 3 rounds, but I think he can really land the more damaging shots, and he can also look for takedowns. And that's something else that I think is available here for Ponzinibbio, who is a more well-rounded fighter. D-Rod can be taken down. We've seen it. 2 of his more recent fights, Kelvin Gastelum was 4-for-4 on takedowns, and Neil Magny was 5-for-7 on takedowns. So I thought that, is interesting enough. And then you even have Ponzinibbio, who had 2 takedowns against Muslim Salikov like 2 fights ago. So it is something he can look to implement. I think he can mix it up a little bit better, find some success there. So for me here in this spot, I do like Santiago Ponzinibbio to get the job done at -118. Next fight here we're going to talk about is Serhiy. He is -130 on the comeback. We've got Cameron Smotherman. He is +120. Now, I was actually pretty impressed with Cameron Smotherman's most recent fight, or his UFC debut, I should say, against Jake Hadley. Now, Hadley, not the most elite level guy, but he's a UFC, or was a UFC caliber guy, does have a pretty decent skill set, and coming in on very short notice for Cameron, he comes in there, really performed well. He was a +460 underdog in that spot and well outperformed his number, ended up cashing in for anybody who bet him. And, he goes out there and outlands Hadley 96-60. I thought it was pretty impressive performance overall. I do like Smotherman's striking. I think it's not that bad. He's got some good boxing, decent hand speed, does have some power as well. And I think he's a sharper striker between these 2 guys, because I really wasn't that impressed with Serhiy's overall game over his last 2 fights in the UFC, or his only 2 fights in UFC. He's 1-1 in the UFC. Both of them are by split decision. But, I got to say, his most recent fight, he was absolute, what was his name? Armfield, Garrett Armfield was absolutely robbed against Serhiy, where, you know, Garrett goes out there, outlands him, finds 4 takedowns, has 5 minutes of control time, and did not get the decision victory. I thought that was a pretty bad judge. You know, we've seen enough of those, but pretty bad judging. But either way, you know, he probably could be 0-2 going into this fight here. He's tall, he's rangy, but for the most part, he doesn't really utilize it very well. You know, Cory Sandhagen, who is obviously a high-level, elite-level guy, but someone like Cory, who's long and lanky, very good with the front kicks, very good at range, very good footwork, you know, hits guys with the end of his punches, you know, mixes up things very well. I just don't really see any of that really Serhiy does well, utilizing any of, you know, his physical advantages here. And I think in the pocket, I do think that you're going to see a lot of success and how hittable Serhiy is in the pocket. I think, you know, the tall man defense, I'm not very big on really how Serhiy, you know, blocks punches with his face a lot. And really the pressure, I think that's something else that Smotherman can look to move forward, look to utilize the pressure, keep Serhiy on that back foot, which he does seem uncomfortable when that's happening. And I think in boxing range, that's where Cameron's going to find the success, look to land better shots. I think Serhiy needs takedowns, you know, in order to find any type of success here. And, you know, that's also something that he doesn't, you know, hasn't really had that much success with. You know, out of his 2 UFC fights, he's 0-8 on takedowns. So I think this fight probably plays out on the feet. I think this is really where you're going to see Cameron land the better shots, cleaner shots, the more impactful shots. And I do like him in this spot, especially at this plus number still. Line is getting tighter here as money is coming on Smotherman. I do agree with that line movement here. So we're going to be going Cameron Smotherman at plus 120. And the last one here we're going to talk about is Gaston Bolanos. He is minus 142. On the comeback here, we've got Quang Lee. He is plus 120. Now, you got Gaston Bolanos here. He opened up around minus 220, and you had Lee around that plus 180 mark. We have seen money consistently come in on Lee. And, you know, I do think that the line movement is coming from basically the perceived path that Quang Lee has, which is wrestling. And yes, there's the opportunity for him to do that. Yes, there's opportunity for him to get these takedowns, to try to, you know, mix that in, win positionally here. But, you know, overall, I'm really unimpressed with Quang Lee's wrestling. Not only just the fact that the wrestling, I think, is not that great, but also the fact he doesn't go to it all the time. And that can be problematic here against a high-level striker in Bolanos who really brings a lot of power. And you even saw it, you know, for Lee, where he fought Chris Gutierrez, who stuffed, you know, most of the takedowns for Lee. And even against Zhao Long. You know, Zhao Long, he probably should have really shot more takedowns. He shot 2 takedowns in that fight. So for me, I think that's a bad sign here. If he's not going to it and he can't really do it to begin with, I don't like his wrestling. I think that's really where, you know, you see Bolanos find some success. And I also do think that Bolanos has improved some of his wrestling, his defensive wrestling, and his get-up game. And I think that's where there can be the success here for him. I think he's going to have the physicality advantage, be the stronger guy, have the opportunities to really either muscle himself out of bad positions, or even just have good defensive ability to create that space. And again, when he's been taken down, now I do see a better get-up game to create the space and to get back to his feet. And that's really where I do see this fight play out, mostly on the feet. And on the feet, I think Bolanos is far better of a striker, the harder hitter between these two guys. He's got solid Muay Thai. I think he can mix in a lot of different things on the feet and just more tools on the feet compared to Quang Lee in this spot. And also, we just saw Quang Lee get knocked out recently against a worse striker in Zhao Long. And now he's going to face Bolanos here. I think Bolanos can land the bigger shots, land the more impactful shots, really, you know, pile up that damage. And I think that's going to really start to see Lee shooting these, you know, I think desperate takedown attempts, and that's where Bolanos can find that success. And plus, you got to add in the fact that Lee is just very hittable. He already has a negative striking differential over his 2 fights in the UFC. So I do like Gaston Bolanos here. This line has come in. We're getting a better price here. This line may actually continue to come in, but I do like Gaston Bolanos here, even at this minus 142 number. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Des Moines. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, already do have 3 plays up for clients, and we'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. We do have 9 more straight UFC events coming, so we're going to keep piling out these videos, hitting these bets, and with that being said, let's cash.